welcome to our Monday night school board meeting. I would just like to remind everyone that there are Tuesday. There are two opportunities for you to address the board. The first one will be in a few moments when we vote on our action items. We ask that you keep your comments to the action items only. The second opportunity will be at the end of our meeting during our public comment section, where you can address the board with concerns or comments you might have. So with that, we'll move on to the agenda. Approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Varacco.
Thank you, Mrs. Suze. Is it working?
It won't be broadcast, I was told. Just it's for online only.
Hello?
I don't think it's broadcast over the speaker system, right?
Well, we need that, though.
Is this one working?
Can you get us some sound?
It's only for live stream only.
Live stream only.
Gotcha.
Live stream. Okay, let me have it back then.
Stand and look at the audience, huh?
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Suze. For the agenda, there is a revision under Roman numeral 7B1, the personnel, as well as 7C1, a professional leave request under Mrs. Schoen's listing.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malkow. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
By Mr. Baxo. Any questions or comments?
Just a revision. It's actually Roman numeral number 8, Larry.
It's normally number 7.
You are right. 8B.
No problem.
All right. So any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Roman numeral 3.
Okay, so for Roman numeral 3, we are obligated by law for Indiana Code 20-29-6-1A to have a hearing for the public for them to weigh in on what we should negotiate with our teachers' bargaining unit on any topic related to wages or fringe-related benefits. This would be something like a raise. It could be a stipend, which is a one-time payment to staff members. It could be payment for additional days of training. It could be to consider things in the area of healthcare benefits. So we are allowed to do it during the course of a regular meeting. We just need to pause during the regular meeting, which is what we're doing right now, to give people a chance to weigh in. Should they have any thoughts or things that they would like for administration and the board to consider regarding teacher compensation and collective bargaining. You would not have had to sign in for this if you care to comment. Anybody from the public care to comment? Okay, I will share with the board and the people watching and the people in the audience that we will be beginning formal negotiations on the very topics I just spoke of, raise, stipend, payment for additional days of training, healthcare benefits, which is an activity we partake in all year long with a group of our teachers from the bargaining unit. So, hearing none, I think we can now move on, Mrs. Stoops.
And when does that formal collective bargaining
It
begin?
could begin as soon as tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall, is there any correspondence?
Thank you. At this point, there's nothing that has been brought to my attention.
All right, with that, we'll move on to our liaison committee updates. And Mr. Marshall, do you have anything you'd like to share?
The Direct Personnel Interview Committee meeting has been inactive on my behalf, although I'm sure Terry has been very active otherwise.
Wonderful. All right, Mr. Baxo?
Nothing really from Diary Development Committee, except just want to alert everyone that 213th Street east of Calumet MU is closed, and it will be that way for 2 weeks. They're putting in new sewers and things associated with going down to the new fire department there. So avoid 213th for
Dr. Malkow?
Well, on behalf of Wellness, I know that they are scheduling the flu shot, I believe. So I would suggest that you check with your doctor about that. You know, there's a lot of conversation out there, and we've got to be prepared for when the flu season hits. So just an FYI that you might want to talk with your doctor about that. With Lake Central Education Foundation, I think we have a meeting next week. And with legislative, I just wanted to give the update at the national level that the U.S. Department of Education has given a final interim rule that it gives districts like Lake Central the option to set aside the aid for a subset of private school students like they typically do, instead of the broader population of all those students. So it had been suggested by our national education leader that all students in a private school would receive funding for the CARES Act, and now it's been modified so that it would be the subset, which is what we do with title programs. So I thought that was an interesting change, and I wanted to share that. That's it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And the only thing I have is Dollars for Scholars. There will be a student call-out meeting soon, as well as a parent call-out meeting, so look for those dates. All right, we'll move on to our official school board business topics, consent agenda. Dr. Bracco.
Thank you again. Seek board approval of the minutes from our August 17th meeting, as well as approval of the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Marshall and a second by Mr. Baxo. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. And there are no public comments regarding action items. So we will move right on to our official school board business topics. Dr. Varacco.
Once again, my first item is to seek board approval to virtually participate in the Indiana School Board Association, Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents at the end of September. That request is for Mrs. Sue's also to be able to view the virtual conference from her private computer. There is no in-person activity for this fall due to COVID, so seek board approval for that professional leave request.
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Malkow,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes.
Could I interrupt for a minute? Can everybody in the audience hear us and hear the speaker, hear Dr. Varacco? Everything's good? Okay, I just wanted to check on that. Thank you.
Okay, my second item is to ask the board to approve a small adjustment to our territories for elementary school district. If you saw the map, you know that on the east side of Burr, at the northern portion, the northeast corner of our district, there is a farm that is being converted into a subdivision, and that subdivision, where the old boundary was, it was cutting right through the new subdivision. And so in order to keep and avoid having to relocate anyone, and I think since I reviewed the geo map, I've been told that the home that's on the property now is going to be demolished. But
That's true.
that looked like it was currently in Piper. So we have decided to bring the border all the way up to the Turkey Creek. And so seek board approval for that adjustment to convert what is currently empty land into more property, and any elementary children who would move in there would go to Piper.
Sorry, do we know approximately how many houses will be
Put
going?
it on the
186.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Marshall. Do we have a second?
I'd like to second that.
We have a second by Dr. Malkow. Any questions or comments?
Larry, will you be working with the developer? I think you indicated it was Olthoff, or how will we know what impact that's going to have on our district? I know you.
We never really know what impact it will be in terms of how many children go in until they start building homes.
in.
see who decides to move in. Some neighborhoods that have received a lot of Illinois transplants, believe it or not, have a lot of people who are empty nesters already. So you just don't know what demand is going to bring
Yeah.
until they get going. The other thing I should have said earlier is because we've been told that the tree farm is on hold, that also helped us to decide that Piper could handle this neighborhood.
Yeah. Larry, the projection is the homes will be SFRs, single-family residents? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Larry.
So do we know why the Christmas tree farm is on hold? Is that coming later, or is it just
I don't know. I heard from somebody who told me that that thing is
a dead deal? Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you. Then my third item is to seek board approval to extend our clinic arrangement with Community Hospital. Had a chance to look at that menu of items. Those are all the things that our staff members who are on our health plan can go to Community and not pay a copay, and we pay a flat rate for that service. The flat rate is generally about a third what we pay normally through an average of all the other channels of which we could do that. Initially, when we set up the clinic, it was to tackle those common items like strep throat, like other things, perhaps a flu test, other things like that. And so, per my bullet points, you see that they are increasing the rate by $3 for the current year and $2 the following year. On the last two-year agreement, it went up $3 in the second year. So that's consistent with what they've done in the past. It's a good deal for us, and we appreciate the relationship. It helps us bend our costs in our health plan.
Larry, do you know if they also include any COVID testing in that copay or anything of that sort, or is it just this list?
So you can get COVID testing in a lot of places. So I'm sure they have it, but we wouldn't have to go there.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this agreement.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Malko.
I'll second that motion.
I have a second by Mr. Baxo. Any questions? Are these always two-year agreements? Is that what you just said?
That's what they're comfortable with.
That's what they're comfortable
Because they want to be able to make sure that it's worth it for them. At this price point, it's definitely worth it for us.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Now we get to move on to our Director of...
Before we move ahead, Dr. Bracco, do you know much about the CNN broadcasts that we have going on in our middle schools, the news broadcast?
It's CNN News, CNN 10 for children.
Well, I remember,
It's not regular CNN News.
right.
After you inquired, I looked at it. It's none of the personalities you see on the regular channel. It's rather vanilla. You can view it on YouTube. I viewed 3 of those things today. One of them was all the garbage that's floating in outer space and how a company's trying to figure out how to garner some of it back and bring it back to Earth. There was one about how effective flu vaccines are. Generally speaking, each section has 3 stories, 1 longer story, 2 shorter stories. And while I can see how some people would want to equate it to the regular CNN, what I saw was not like a regular news. It was much more matter of fact. While somebody may not like a topic that they're covering, they are topics in the news.
Correct.
I haven't watched it in depth. We didn't have it when I was in the classroom still. And I didn't have a chance to talk to teachers to see how much it gets utilized. I suspect it gets utilized when subs are in, or at the end of a period, perhaps, or it's spot on with the topic that they
Okay.
find,
Okay.
that they can relate to whatever is the topic in the class.
So it might be more of a resource now, whereas I remember when it came on the education scene, it was, it was driven in all of our classrooms. Every morning, we had to watch CNN News. But it wasn't the political stuff.
It was called Channel 1. It was
Yeah.
Channel 1 originally. which
Originally,
was a
yes.
different thing, but
Right. And then it changed to
I would
CNN.
just encourage you to watch some samples
Okay, so I think that's important, so it's not like the regular CNN, but it's called CNN 10?
Correct.
Okay, and you can find it on YouTube if you'd like to view it. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to our Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Mucha.
Thank you very much. We're recommending that the following be approved personnel, but I do want to bring to your attention Leroy Held, who's retiring with 27 years of service to Lake Country.
Move to approve?
We have a motion by Mr. Baxo
Second?
and a second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions or comments? Glad to see that you've hired 9 custodians and 7 paras, so.
Bill and Sheila have been very busy.
Yes, you have.
That's good.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you very much. The second item I have today is about the Teacher Appreciation Grant. As you know, last year, it has to be approved every year so that we can apply for the grant. And I have to have it by mid-September. So it is the same grant that you redid in December. And it also has been given to Lake Central Teacher Association, and they also are sponsors. But I do need your approval so I can apply for that grant.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second?
Okay.
second by Mr. Baxo. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Now we'll move on to our Director of Primary Education, Mrs. Schoen.
Thank you. I just have 2 items, the first of which is a professional leave request that I am seeking your approval for. It was at your station day because it was a position.
So moved.
We have a motion by
Second.
Dr. And a second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And my final item is a field trip request that I am also seeking your approval for.
So
Move to
moved.
approve?
Okay. Second.
Okay. Mr. Baxo motioned and Dr. Malkow second. Any questions?
I thought that was a really cute field trip.
I think so too.
Go on it every year, and
I don't,
Oh,
think you can pull it off this year with all of the social distancing requirements. So good that there's at least one field that we can make happen.
sounds interesting. Yeah, very surprising, so good for them.
absolutely. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And now we'll move on to our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Castaneda.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Malkow. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Your motion passes.
So moved.
Second?
All right. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Your motion passes. Thank you. Now,
Excuse me, before we move ahead, Sarah, could you just summarize the process that was used to go back to the regular schedule versus the block schedule? And how, well, I guess today was the first day, wasn't it, of using that change?
We had the Taylor staff reach out to us with some concerns, and so Dr. Bracco and I and all over and met with them. Dr. Bracco and I spoke with them and heard their concerns based on what they were feeling and how many staff members need to be impacted by it. We did a survey of all the middle school staff. And so the 5th grade, which has always kind of been on a bit of a block, didn't have a preference either way. The 6th to 8th grade teachers, 70% of them wanted to go back to the traditional schedule. They said that the students were having a very hard time staying engaged for those lengthier periods of time. They felt that instruction would be more beneficial if they could go back to the traditional schedule with the shorter classes and see kids every day. We also had an issue with some of those arts classes where 2 of the periods we have them for double periods landed on the same block day, that they were with that teacher for 108 minutes for 3 hours straight, which is a lot for an accountant group. And so given all those factors, that was the department chairs, probably about a week and a half ago, virtually, and talked through it and decided that back to the traditional schedule was better.
Okay.
That's the process.
So it's consensus decision? Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Sarah, can you keep us updated on that too? I'd like to know how that's going once we switch back again to traditional. Because I was just kind of amazed that I know I can't sit for 3 hours. I can't even sit for half an hour without, but yeah, I'd just like to know how that's going. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Gramala.
You are far away.
So my first item tonight is to seek your reauthorization on an agreement that we first did last year, and that's you as the board giving me permission to sign off on residential contracts for students who are placed using the state's excess cost funds. So by approving this, it allows me to sign off on those contracts instead of me trying to get one of you access to the state's complicated electronic system. So I would seek your approval for that.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Malkow,
I'd like to second that.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Your motion passes, thank you.
Thank you. And then my second item is to just give you an update on some of our grants, our federal grants that we have going on right now. So the good news is that with all the other questions we've sort of had about funding is our federal grant funds seem to be pretty stable. Some small ups and downs like we have every year that's based mainly on our student population, but for the most part, all of our numbers look about the same. Our special ed grants, so we have the 2 Part B grants for special education, those have been submitted. We have final approval on one and we're waiting for final approval on the other. We had a change in our title grants, and Mrs. Schoen and I sort of share the responsibility for the title grants. She handles some of them, I handle some of them. And they changed the system this year, so we have just sort of one, they call it a consolidated application. And the idea behind that is that we will use those funds in a coordinated way to make, rather than serving a bunch of separate populations, we'll really plan together. We do that already here, but now the application is sort of built for that. So they divided it into 2 parts, and the first was what they called the pre-application, which really is an application, but it was all the sort of narrative questions you have to answer about how you're going to use the money and what our assurances are and what systems we have in place to make sure that we are spending the funds how they're supposed to be spent. So we have submitted that. We're waiting for the final approval on that. And then when we get that, then we have the budgeting part of the application. So that'll be the next step that Mrs. Schoen and I will kind of each focus on our pieces of the title grants that we both do.
So you're talking Title I, Title II, and Title III.
Right.
There's not a 4 anymore, is there? Oh, there is?
There is a Title IV, yep.
Okay.
And then, so that final budget will be due by September 30th, and then we'll have, be waiting for approval for that. And then the other grant I'm involved in is the Nesp, which is our non-English speaking populations. So that and Title III both serve our students who are English language learners. And that was just released within the last week or so, and then that's also due by the end of September. So we'll have all that done. The state is transitioning to one system to handle all these different grants. So they've had some glitches along the road too that have kind of, they release an application and then they say, wait, don't do anything, and pull it back. And so there's been a little bit of back and forth that way. But like I said, good news is no significant decreases in our funding, no significant increases either. But so that's where we're at with those grants, and I will keep you posted as things get approved and programs are underway.
So is the CARES Act money in addition to these grants?
Yes, so the CARES Act money is separate, and that was finalized over the summer.
Okay.
Honestly, it was such a whirlwind, I can't remember what the due date on that was. But we did, within Lake Central, we ended up with about $560,000 through the CARES Act. We did have to, with all the back and forth on the non-public school funding piece, a lot of public schools that we don't typically hear, non-public schools that we don't typically hear from related to our Title I money, wanted to access the CARES money. So the nice part was we were able to work with our neighboring districts, and like schools in Maryville who serve students who live in Lake Central. I was able to work with the Maryville title director, and then we just transfer those funds to that school district versus us trying to coordinate with 10 different non-public schools. So even if the student attends a school outside of our district, if they live here, that money follows them.
Right.
And so we're lucky in Indiana that the ruling you talked about from the federal government, Dr. McCormick in Indiana was really the first person who stood up at a state level and said, this is not right. You're funneling money away from public schools into non-public schools.
Right.
And she said just flat out, Indiana is not going to do that. And so she was the one to really challenge it and spoke up on behalf of all the states. So we were lucky to have her in that position here.
So then you felt comfortable moving forward with
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
McCormick's?
Yeah,
even though
because
it had
she
not been
she
okayed?
made that decision for Indiana, and then there were some court decisions pretty quickly that agreed with her that what the federal government, the guidance we got from the federal government was not correct
Right.
and contradictory to the title rules.
And then I think some of those courts were questioned and voted down, and yeah.
Right.
So NESP is our new name now. The
Well,
new acronym?
that's one of the grants we have for non-English speaking populations. So we have that and we have Title III. So they're two separate funding streams for our EL students.
Okay, so we have NESP and Title III
Mhm.
for ELL students.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
really, now what's the source of the NESP? Why did that come about, do we know?
Oh,
Just-
that's been around for a while.
It's state funding.
Yeah.
It's
and
state
it's-
funded?
Yeah, so Mrs. Schoen handled that prior to me, but that is
Okay.
state level funding. So that's a smaller pot of money than
But
what
still
we
an
get. Yep.
effort on their part. Okay, thank you.
Becky?
Yes.
A generalized question. As far as potential new students entering our school corporation or existing IEPs with potential revisions, is that an ongoing process right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have students entering and moving into our district all year. And then we are revising IEPs all year.
All right,
and
so it
even-
is actively ongoing right
Yes,
now?
yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to, did you have questions for Mr. Marino, our Director of Technology? Sorry, Mr. James. Not yet.
Oh,
Did you have questions from
Yeah,
Mr. Marino?
Yeah. Hi, Rick, how are you? You know what, you've had just one heck of a beginning to the school year and end of the school year and a crazy summer, I know, and I've just heard all sorts of wonderful stories about your team. With all the new purchases that we've made with the Chromebooks, you know, I've always been of the philosophy that's great to have all those Chromebooks or all those whatever iPads, but if you don't have the instructors to help the teachers, then we got a problem. So what are your thoughts about that? Have you been able to add additional instructors? How's that going? Well, technicians would be one, but also then the instructional leaders. I mean, I think we only have one for the entire high school, and if, yeah, and if you're having trouble with e-learning,
Well, the technicians come under me, the trainers don't. We have it, as far as I know, they can tell you better. The trainers have done a great job, the technicians have done a great job. My techs work, you know, of course, the first couple of weeks, evenings and weekends, to try to get those 17 there with the good job. So that works out great. We've had no problem, things have slowed down a lot. We were still getting maybe 20 requests a day from e-learners, requesting more info, and it's dropped down to about 10 now a day.
Good.
And I expect they'll probably be another week and a half. We really haven't had any problems.
so are those problems related to them not understanding the process, or is it more the connections that they have in their homes?
Yes, the problems that I've when I've spoken to parents, I spoke probably to 150 problems pretty recently. But they're usually parents who maybe gave the laptop that their child that went away to college had because of the lab. And they said, oh, I have this extra laptop that's about 5 or 6 years old, and I gave that to my daughter or something.
Well, I know in some of the rural districts, you know, children are without service. And so my question would be, is that a problem that we have here? And the reason I'm asking is because legislatively, I mean, that needs to go down to the state level. I consider that to be a state responsibility, but before I open my mouth, I wanted to know what the issues were.
I haven't come across anyone yet that didn't have internet access.
Oh,
And what was nice was, and I know that there was a few months, I don't know if it's still going on, but Xfinity set it up so that you can get free Wi-Fi. If your
Right.
neighbor had Xfinity, that you would be able to log in to their network.
oh, okay.
That went on through most of the summer. It might have ended, you know, end of July, possibly. I don't know if it.
Okay, okay. Well, that's a good report. That's nice to hear. So if I have a question then about the trainers, and do we have enough trainers, where does that question go? To you two, okay. And the only reason I ask is because this is a large high school, large staff population, and I think there's only one person here, unless that's changed.
Remember, the technicians help troubleshoot issues.
You'll have to speak up. I cannot hear. I'm sorry.
The technicians help troubleshoot issues with Chromebooks, anything with the network. So those kind of problems are not things that our tech trainers are dealing with. Our tech trainers are primarily helping the teachers with things like smartboard or with the
Right.
Canvas platform. So we have tried to divide up what each person is responsible for to make it more manageable. I'm not gonna lie, if we look there with abundance of extra money, I would ask for more technology trainers, but unfortunately. And an abundance of teachers, and we don't have that.
Well, at one point in time, you could hire, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but it seems like you could hire trainers to do with technology out of capital projects fund. Is that still true?
Well, the real problem is getting people who are adept at technology, who are willing to leave the classroom. And right now, we're not willing to pull anybody out of the classroom.
Got it.
Because of what we see as a lack of people to fill in. So it's not something we would rule out completely for the future, but not for this year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, we thought we had a teacher shortage before. Now we really have a teacher shortage, don't we? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that, and it sounds like you're staying on it to the best of your financial ability. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
My daughter did have a problem with her Chromebook, and I appreciated it. It was resolved immediately, so
Good.
I thank you for that. All right, we'll move on to our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Item on my agenda is to seek your approval for the donations that were included in your board package.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Marshall. Do we have a second?
Second?
By Mr. Baxo. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item I want to give the board an update on our bond refunding that we talked about. A couple things that are here first. On August 19th, we did a bond rating with S&P. And just as normal, they went through lots of the questions, they really dig in to see and learn the story of Lake Central. And we've been fortunate to have a good relationship with S&P over the last few years. They understand Indiana schools, how they work. They came back and gave us a bond rating of AA+, and for our long term, and a rating of A for the state's underlying debt. That is consistent with prior years, and we are very appreciative of that, given the fact that who knows what the state revenues are going to be. The impact of COVID, we're really putting a detriment on school districts. So the fact that S&P still had a very high rating for us, we're very appreciative. So I put a copy of that.
Rob, you're fading.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry. Is that better? Can you hear me better now?
Sure
Yeah,
can.
we can hear you.
Okay. So the next step on that process is actually one of the things that came up during my conference call with S&P, and we talked about this for years, is our cash balance in our education fund. And you should have in your station 2 spreadsheets that look very similar. One of them in the top left-hand corner says education fund, and the other one will say all operating funds. If you look at the one that's our education fund, you will see, go to the bottom right-hand corner, we are looking at operating really close with our decent our transfers. One of the things that's going to be addressed during my budget presentation is that they had a concern about the cash balance of that fund. So if you look at the cash balance at that top line, for most of the year, we're hovering around the $2 million range, which is relatively low. And a year and a half ago, we had talked about, for the first year, one time only, of taking referendum and transferring that into the education fund to shore up that balance. We have not done that yet because of COVID. We've been doing that, and that would be an action item I would bring to the board within the next meeting or two. That will be a time transfer to help throw that up, and then that way it will help keep this fund healthy. If you look at the other capital, all of our operating funds, this incorporates not only the education fund, but our operations fund, our referendum money, and the balance we have sitting in rainy day. And really, when the law changed a couple of years ago, these funds all really work hand in hand together now. Just taking a snapshot of just education fund doesn't tell the whole picture. And so I wanted to show the board here that also what I shared with S&P, that if you look at those 4 funds together, and you look at the bottom right-hand corner, we're looking at operating almost $5 million to the good this year. Again, that is not going to be the norm. We are still gathering all of our COVID cases, so that's going to come out of that. I just want to reassure the board that we are in a good financial position moving forward. And I'll get to more of the specifics here in a moment when I start my budget presentation. So, I'll entertain any questions from the board regarding these 2 things.
Looks really great, and congratulations on that great rating from
I agree.
Standard & Poor's. Wonderful.
So, okay, so then I will move on to the next set of good news. Last week on September 2nd, we held a bond sale for the referendum bonds. And we had approximately $127 million outstanding that we took to market. Based on the S&P report, there was a lot of bidders on our bonds that we were putting out there. If you recall, when I brought this up to the school board in June, we were estimating that for the remaining 12 to 13 years on those bonds, we were thinking we could probably save about $10.5 million. And we were really excited about that. I'm happy to report that given the market and given, I guess, the interest in us, we were able to pay $15.8 million between now and the rest of the term.
Did you get
It's
that,
going to
Matt?
be an annual savings of about $1,250,000 that will reduce our debt payment.
Wow.
So that is great for our
That's really good.
taxpayers, great for our community. According to my estimates, we'll probably take between between 2.5 and 3 cents off of our tax rate moving forward. So we're really happy, ecstatic. The old interest coupon rate on the old bonds averaged about 4.94%. And after the refunding, that's going to go down to about 1.68.
What was that?
So,
1.8, did you
One-
say?
from 4.94 to 1.68.
Wow.
So that's a large saving. So,
And Rob, can I interrupt? What was the amount of savings? You anticipated the 10.5 million, but then it changed, I think you said, and I didn't catch.
the actual savings is be 15.8 million.
15, okay, wow.
Wow,
Nice.
congratulations.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, we were at, it was a great thing to do, and we will close on those bonds here by the end of the month. And I'll keep the board updated on that because I will eventually need some signatures, probably from City and Howard. But I can do that, get the
Good job.
signatures when needed. So.
Nice work, nice
Good
work.
job.
Any questions on that before I move on? Okay. So now I'm going to start the budget presentation. I didn't know if the board planned on convening. You might have it on your station. I'm going to project it on the screen as well.
There he is.
So now I can't see. So this is my slideshow up there?
Yes, it is, yes.
Okay. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, here we are. It's that time of year. It's the 2021 budget presentation. We're going to go over the calendar, things that have changed since last year. We're required to go over the capital projects plan, the replacement plan, the estimate of funds that are going to be required to be raised for our taxpayers, and how that compares historically, and then I will share the recommendation with you. So here we are, September 8th. We will publish the notice of the public hearing on September 10th. This is no longer done in the newspaper. It is published as part of the state's gateway system. And we will have a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled board meeting on September 21st, and conclude the process on October 5th, adopting the budget. I just want to take a moment and kind of share where the K-12 funding has been from the state for the last 6 years or so. You can see the last 2 years, the state has really tried effort to put more money into the budget. And where that has subsequently trickled down to Lee Central is that funding per student has also increased. Well, currently, for this fiscal year, we are just over $5,900 per student. Little more history. We received this year's budget on December 13th. DLGF intends to have all budget orders by December 31st. Our 2020 net assessed valuation is just under $4.5 billion and just under $5 billion if you count all the TIP districts that are included in the referendum funds. That's about a 4.5% increase from 2019, and preliminary indications are for next year, our AP is going to go up another $340 million, about 7.7%. So there's a 2-year lag on how those home sales affect our AP, and as we've seen throughout the Tri-Town area, it is a selling market. People values are really driving the home values up. So that helps us and keep our tax rates up. So, challenges in the last year, rather than right in, that's a pandemic, and so this has brought a lot of additional costs to us, and in essence, to every school district around. We are in the process of did hire 11 additional teachers. We are hiring an additional 11 custodians, that were not on this board packet. There's still more on the works. We added 850 additional Chromebooks, 200 classroom cameras, and 100 laptops. Those are all things that are, in essence, done in order to make the e-learning curriculum delivery happen. In addition to that, you can see all the sanitation and cleaning items that we implemented. And then the third one, the last one that doesn't really get much talk about is our food service department. Those lunches are, especially in the spring, not serving lunches, we still continue to have payroll. And then now in the fall, the amount of revenue they're getting through the line has decreased. We've seen more kids just bringing their lunch. So right now, we've had a net of revenue of food service part by about $50,000. They're funded in the pool, and at some point, we're going to have to come up with money in order to transfer into the food service fund in order to get them back to where they were prior to COVID. So if you get that all goes up, COVID in essence has cost us just over approximately $2.3 million. That was unexpected. We mentioned the CARES Act when Becky was talking. That was nice, we'll take it, but that's only about a fourth of what our actual expenditures are. And so we'll see how this plays out into the future. The teachers could potentially, though they're filling additional spots now because of e-learning, if we are not doing e-learning next school year, then maybe they'll not get absorbed when we have multiple retired next year. But no, we'll worry about that a year from now. So, and by the way, anytime if anyone's got any questions, you just feel free to jump in. So what else has changed? Beginning in September 2019, we no longer utilize the joint service fund for Westlake education expenditures. We now have a full year of expenditures under our belt, so it was easier to project those costs here for calendar 21. One of the other challenges is our funding is really based on APM, and we're preparing this budget for calendar year 21, which is based on an APM count in reality of February 21 and a September 21. And we haven't even done a September of 2020 APM count yet. So it really is working with, I'm working with Sarah and Teresa, and really watching those school numbers. And we were fortunate of what actually came through last week from the State Board of Ed at the last board meeting. I talked about the 85% from virtual students and how that would affect school. It appears that as the first of that has been taken, and that at least for this September count, all of those students that we have e-learning will be funded at one through the rest of this calendar year, and then we'll see how that plays out for the legislature at the beginning of the calendar year in 2021. We also have some weird things that are going on that are unique for this year. I was notified in January by our on-trustee, Neil Ellen, that through an internal audit of theirs, they are changing the due date of our pension bonds. Instead of paying January and July, they're moving to December and June. Which really wouldn't be that much of a big deal, except that I made a payment in January, and my payment that I normally would have made in July, I made in June, and now I'm gonna have to make another payment here in December. So we've already have a tax levy and an approved budget for 2 payments, and we're gonna have to make a 3rd payment this year. So I've been working with the TLGF and figured out what I'm gonna do. And so at the probably we're doing all these budget resolutions in October. We're gonna do a temporary loan to the pension, while I was here, to do a temporary loan between one of our other funds, maybe referendum money, maybe operations, to do a temporary loan to the pension fund, and then that money will be there to make that payment in December, and then for 2021, we will pay back that loan to the other fund. DLGF has watched this as the best way to do that. The good news is the bonds get paid off 60 million. We already talked about half balance for the education fund through S&P. I'll be seeking that approval from the board to make a one-time transfer there. And because of all those expenditures from COVID, related to COVID, the additional expenditures we've now incorporated into our education fund, the additional teachers, as noted, although instructional devices, our appropriation in the education fund is not going to make it. So I intend to bring forward a resolution in October to transfer approximately $1.5 million of from the operation fund into the education fund. So we're not raising any more money, we're not getting any more dollars from the taxpayer, we're just moving the authority to put that money from one fund to another. On a lighter note, we did receive a grant via the Volkswagen, they call it the Volkswagen grant for in essence, energy efficient vehicles. We received a grant of under $300,000 for 10 propane buses. We've been moving forward the propane buses the last 2 years, and this will dramatically decrease our cost for those buses this year. We're very appreciative of Volkswagen. Christian and his department is already working on that order. The other thing is 2020, and this was the year where the property tax cap in play for governmental units in Lake St. Joe County. Many governmental units, not only schools, were going to get this tax split because ones that were on the most part used to be exempt from the tax cap calculation, and now that is no longer paid. I'm happy to report that because of our highest valuation of the properties in our district and the low tax rates we have, our total circuit breaker loss here in Lake City 2020 was just around $210,000. Now that $210,000 seems like a lot, but when you're talking about a large export, less than 0.5% of the money. Start, you'll 16 school districts in the county at a $44 million tax levy, and that you need to see how that affected us. We have other school districts, and you can kind of go through them all. You can see how they have been hard hit. Most of them are in that 10 to 15% range, and you have the top 3 who are really getting hit. Now, this is just what their certain grade rent act was here in 2020. Lots of this may have already been on the books up until now. I couldn't differentiate how much the 2020 impact is. But the reality is, if you take Gary, for example, you know, as we go through the budget, $38 million levy for an operate, for a while that circuit breaker was taking $21 million off. So they have a shortfall, and it's problematic, and it's really difficult just to cut that money. So, and then here, this is just a part of that same data. You can see that we're barely registering there on the bottom right, and both are in that 10 to 15% range. All right, any questions until this point?
No.
Oh, I do. With the
Janice does.
Volkswagen grant, was that the one that was written by the Lissicks, Carl and Lori Lissick?
That was through the South Shore, Cleveland City.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah, there are your 4 school districts here in the region that we were able to get some money.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's the same one. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go through is our capital project plan. This is the list of the things that we intend to do over the next 3 years. I would like to point out the most important word here is plan. The plan's changed. And we had an intention to do a handful of projects here in 2020, both because of COVID and looking to keep outsiders out of our buildings, even in the summer. Almost project didn't get done, and so we have pushed that here to 21, and I know he's not there, but foremost, he's gonna have a busy summer next year, hoping that we can do all these things. So each year we're gonna allocate him for asphalt and roof repair. This is just mainly patchwork or emergency work, and not new roofs. We'll come done later. Look the nights or chairs. We really need to look at replacing the cots in the nurses' offices. Many of the cots are all torn up, closed, eaten, maybe cell phone. We're in the process of getting some more of those. One of the projects we hope to do here in 2020 that got delayed was the main entry renovation for Clark. This is backside, we talked about before, shared with the board, creating a little office area on the right, and a new secure entryway by that vestibule and perimeter, replacing some of the lighting and taking and patching the soffit. Taylor, looking to do some roof replacement and carpet replacement. At Village, carpet replacement, or some of the sidewalks, fire alarm, and painting too. And Holden, also looking to the gym, and then also to repave Ring Road going around the building. As you know, we do parking lot in there, we're able to add those spaces, and we'll out there, it would be time to well. In addition, we talked about the safety need and main entry renovations, also at Coling and at Piper, again, making them more secure vestibule. Getting at Piper, it's probably going to be more of a 2-year project, but replacing some roofs there as well. Protsman, looking to put in a concrete playground area, and at Watson, roof replacements and painting and patching the soffit. And we also, we really don't see it often on the list, but we don't forget about them. And it's a tap building that we're looking at maybe doing some painting there and freshening it up for it. There toward the bottom, we need to do some brick work at Clark, more roof replacement at Taylor, replacing the gym floor and the bleachers at Taylor. This has been on the list for a few years, and they actually keep pulling up. So we're going to keep pushing it until it gets to be more of an issue. Those are high ticket areas. At Vivid, parking lot light, replacement, paving the parking lot, painting the gym, and some more additional roof replacement at Piper, and painting the gym at Watson. I think after that last paint gym, I think all the gyms would be painted here at the last 2 years going back, or these 2 years going forward. And then the third year, wherever allocation, and we have that statement pulled for the old Nesp it used to be. Right now, we don't have much of a need for them, but that could be turned to space for, or whatever. And so we're not saying for sure what we need on the project original intent. So in addition to projects, Indiana Code also requires us to list any capital items or store equipment, assets, at a cost that has been cost of over $10,000. Also for the same 3-year plan. Over the next few years, buy a new water trailer. We're buying a box truck, that box truck won't be used to be used by the new parts, to be used by food service, to be used by maintenance on the weekends. So that's something that we can get a lot of use of. A new force running routine, you're going to see that a couple times. We'll say how great those are for our custodial crew. They use them all the time, and they really work well. Another thing that we see multiple times are the snow tractor crossings that our custodians use to make our sidewalks and entryways safe. Again, we have some older ones across the country, and we're looking to buy one of those each year. We'd be looking to get a new gator. Here at the high school, and then another one at Cooler. I'm not looking to get a new delivery van, a stripping machine, another riding lawnmower, again, some more snow removal tractors. The final one, for the bottom of the snowplow dump truck with a spreader. We bought a new one of those a few years ago. It works well. And now our other one is starting to have some issues as well. So hopefully we're coming up in 23, but we want to prepare for it. And as I said, it's a plan. All right, the next step is we have to come up with a 5-year bus replacement plan. And for the next few slides, you'll see a listing of all the buses in our fleet. I believe there are 94. This incorporates your traditional yellow bus, your smaller yellow special needs buses, the white activity buses, and the coach buses as well. So starting in 2021, about 10 buses we're looking to replace. All of those are the traditional 72 passenger buses. That first one on line 1 is an one for white activity. 2022, same thing. A higher priced one is the special ed bus. Those they do cost more because of the lift gates and all the special equipment. Really, this list just keeps on. It's a more of a 12-year replacement plan. The state only wants to show these first 5 years. So the rest of the slide just show information on these last 10 that are on here numbers 85 through 94. These will be the 10 buses that we are purchasing yours for now. We hope to receive by the end of this calendar year 2020. So therefore, I and we assign corporation customers to them, they will be added to this list. As you can see, we try to be consistent each year, but we don't have too many spikes up and down, and generally we're about 110 buses a year.
Hey, Rob, could I ask a question?
Yes.
Where are the white buses on this list?
The white buses would be ones that look at that fourth column. There's, it says a type of bus.
Uh-huh.
When you see a white bus, you little athletic activity buses.
No, I mean the big white buses.
Okay, those big white buses are right there, on the screen in year 2023. You can see those have a higher price on those as well. I did have a discussion with Christian about that when we met about the plan, and, we'll reevaluate those here in the next 1 to 2 years. They are, my understanding, we've been having, our share of mechanical issues with them, and so all the positives that come with them, whether it's some of the positives that come with them, being the undercarriage parade, the seats on the inside, it's my understanding that traditional buses can be equipped to have the same type of features. So, it's something we'll discuss and see, what we want to do for that in the future, prior to 20.
Okay, I know they're very valuable for students that are involved in athletics or co-curricular activities because of the long hours. So appreciate your attention to that.
Hours, but
Rob?
psychologically, it probably makes them feel good and relaxed, and to make it, give them confidence going into a competition. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Hey, Rob?
the other flip side are having mechanical issues with them, they're not lasting as long as we pump. It's just something to talk about.
Rob, one question for you. Are all the Bluebird buses, are those propane? Did you hear my question?
Final, yeah, so yes, they are. For these added this year, that will be 30 buses, 30 propane buses. In essence, it'll be all 30 years ago.
So are we going all propane, or there's still going to be some diesel buses in the future?
Well, I'm not the transportation director, but from my talking to Christian, it does sound as if the price of the fuel is very comparable. The drivers really like them. They're quiet. They start right up. We don't have the winter issues with the diesel engines. And from what I'm hearing, it sounds as if people aren't going these alternative fuel propane, they're kind of going away from traditional diesel and going with just regular gas as well. Diesel engines are having more and more problems nowadays. So I'm not a mechanic, but if the price is right and we can have some long-term effects on the maintenance or lack of maintenance with the propanes, it seems like it could be working out well as of now.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, the efficiency's there.
And I'd add, Don, that if you remember the last couple of years before the Volkswagen settlement, we also received some grant money that offset the upcharge between traditional unleaded fuel and propane. So
Okay.
that's how we started on the propane transfer.
Okay.
Okay.
But everything Christian has told me, we could go back and purchase some unleaded fuel buses, but it's not likely we would go back to diesel.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
All right, so now we'll get into a little bit of the budget numbers of the bill. We have 6 funds that we budget for. This is a sheet that you've seen each year. It's called the 16 line statement, because again, there's 16 lines, all very innovative. And actually, the DLPF has changed this form, and it looks really different, but it's really the same information. And for this year at least, I just take the same presentation in here, since it's something I'm familiar with. The top portion, the first third, kind of gives an estimate of what the expenditures are going to be for the 18-month period of July 1 of this current year to December 31st of the following year. Currently, we are transferring approximately 9% of our revenue from education fund into the operations fund. That is well below the state's 15% what they call best practices or thresholds, so we're happy that we can keep more money in the education fund for that purpose. This 7.6 million dollars you see on board, I guess it's called 1A, that will represent closer to 8% of our projected revenue. And the revenues projection, because based on the accounts we don't have, but I foresee it transferring less dollars out of education fund this upcoming calendar year in 2020. That additional appropriation you see there on line 3 for education fund is the $2.5 million that will be recommended to the board that we transfer out of the operation fund into the education fund here in 2020. Help offset some of the COVID expenses there. So we're looking at a budget of $60 million for education for 2020. We were at 56.5, I believe, for this calendar year. But as I explained, we want to be prepared for additional expenditures that we just don't know what's out there, and we have money to support them. In our operation fund, we're looking to advertise in the budget of $21.8 million, as consistent with the current year. That is the referendum operating fund, a $9 million budget, also consistent with the current year. If you scroll down or move down to the bottom there, for referendum operating fund, that is a 17% tax rate, which is what our taxpayers approved from us 2 years ago. We move to our 3 debt funds. The budget for the traditional debt service fund is $7.9 million. That amount is very consistent with last year. Our pension bond fund, $1.3 million, also very consistent. And then our referendum debt fund, $13.6 million, also very consistent with this year. You'll see another slide here, we're compared this year's current approved budget to the advertised amounts that I'm taking from you. And you can see that, as I said, in the education fund we're looking to increase, and all the rest of the funds are very consistent. Because of the growth in the EU, we're looking to have an advertised tax rate be approximately 8.5 cents to 9 cents lower. We don't know what the final numbers are going to be, but I just want to share with the board that even with having consistent numbers, most of the fund, hoping the tax rate will actually go down. Here's the historical comparison tax rate wise for how much we've advertised and then how much the actual came back as. We do this, we advertise high. Most of you have been on the board for a long time. People I see, we advertise high to protect ourselves because you can always get less, but if something changed, you could have gotten more money than what you advertised for, and then you're out of luck. So that's why we consistently see the advertised rate being higher than what it actually ends up being. We're trying to close that gap a little bit. So if you look there for the bottom right, I'm expecting even more advertising, $1.02 lesson. It will probably be more in the mid-90s, mid to low 90s. Here is pretty much from the same general information, and that you will see that the blue line on the bottom, our tax rate has been very consistent for all these years. The little bump up in 19 was really because of the additional 17% that our taxpayers approved in order for our school district. You can see up there, it's still really low, and you can also see that on that red line that the assessed valuation has steadily been increasing all these years as well. And from what I reported earlier, I'm expecting that to continue on that also. So that's all good news for us and our taxpayers. So in summary, the recommendation will be for these amounts to be the budget amounts for, funds, and that, those amounts, this system, repeat, or we have a whole hearing on September 3rd, representative, and then adopt budget on October 5th. This is an estimate, or this is, in order to look like each different gateway system, how those budget amount, how three is working, and then compared to the current tax rate. Don't be alarmed by that, that 30% higher, that because of that additional one payment that I slashed fund we in the loan repayment I talked about earlier. And so, here in the middle of the screen, you know, I mentioned how the property tax cap of $210,000 for this year. The ELPF is estimated to be about 235 that year. So, still, a big number, but it's all things considered for a $44 million budget, it is in there. So, that's what I got right now. Any questions or anything else I went over it?
You know, Rob, once I get home and have a moment to absorb all of this, I might be stopping by. It was hard for me to distinguish and discriminate what you were saying sometimes. So if that's okay with you, I'll just stop by the office one day.
Well, I prefer you email me, or we can do some sort of call, as
Okay.
I will not be in the office for about the next 2+ weeks.
Okay, well, that's fine, yeah. Whatever works for you is good for me. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So I think traditionally we have the board has to officially approve the advertising letter.
Oh. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion for the permission to advertise the 2021 budget.
Second?
We have a second. Do we have any questions?
And the capital project plan and the bus replacement plan?
Yeah, exactly.
All three, right?
All three.
Okay, yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Good thing you are not in your pajamas. He's so funny.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, which brings us to public comments. Do we have any? No, we have nobody signed up for public comments. So we'll move on to our board comments and considerations of future agenda items. Dr. Malcolm.
Well, I have a list of questions, but I'm not sure that I want to keep everyone since it's already 8:30. So I'm going to put those on hold for right now. Some of them had to do with payment of athletic department and coaching staff. And I think it's important for the public to know that we have not made the agreement that 20% absentee is when we dismiss school. I think there was that rumor floating around that the school board had said it had to be 20%. But I was really curious more with what was going on at the middle school and high school with the dual platform and how that was working. Are there a lot of teachers that are responsible for the dual platforms at the middle school, high school? And how is that going? Do we know? Oh, definitely. I heard that one of our area districts has 47 in their online e-learning junior class for English at the high school level, 47. Their school corporation's plan was to go back to regular school next week, but they don't have the teachers, which is why they have 47 in a class. So it is a huge problem. Right. Do you know, Dr. Bracco, are they still doing the initiative at the state level about the teacher shortage? Is there any work being done along those lines? Well, I think that there was a subgroup that was working on teacher shortage and how to identify it. Remember, they identified those
Well,
The
issues.
big promise was that, we were going to work to shore up beginning teacher salary to attract more people into it prior to, COVID-19. And so the conversation has pretty much dried up, while the shortage has in fact gotten significantly worse. And so there are more than one area in the district with significant shortage of certified people.
Oh,
And so they have a combination of people who have a license, just not in what they're teaching. And that might be okay. Some people can pull that off. In some technical areas, they cannot do it very well. So,
right,
I
right.
think the important thing is that as we come out of this, we have to make the profession something that more people want to be part of. And that's going to require a lot of effort from a lot of people who have wanted to blame teachers at times in the past. And that needs to, go away. And we need to make the profession one that's revered more.
Absolutely.
And I think that we can start to fill the pipeline.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that I appreciate and acknowledge all the effort to navigate through these difficult waters. What I've heard is that our students are being very, very responsible. They're taking the COVID seriously, and they're doing what they need to do to be safe, and I think that says a lot about our community. And we know that we have teachers and administrators, support staff, building leaders, parents that are really being behind this and the success that we're having. So all I can say to everyone is take a deep breath. Keep finding the positives, because they're out there. You're doing a great job. And I'm so thankful that we do not have a junior English class with 47 in it. That just blew me away when I heard that today. So we're in good shape, I think. Thanks for all your efforts to all of you.
Some great comments. Thank you. Mr. Baxo?
I have no comments this evening.
Mr. Marshall?
Nothing for me, thank you, Cindy.
I only had one comment. I saw that there were some box trucks on that capital project plan. Will any of those be used for maybe band and transporting any band equipment?
We haven't talked about all the uses for it. The primary uses were going to be for the mobile library for the summer living project. And then we also thought it could for sure be used for jazz, because they typically need just a box truck for a school. Of course, all three middle schools participate the same day, so
Oh,
we still have to rent a couple. But if we take turns, it saves some school from their small budget a little bit of revenue. Driving it to Indianapolis,
yeah.
farther, back and forth, we haven't decided yet if we want to do that, or we'd rather put those miles on someone else's truck.
U-Haul, sure.
So that's up in the air.
Will we see you driving?
We pay the rent.
Will I see you driving
I've
it?
driven it before.
I know you have, that's why I'm asking.
We pay the rent for the box trucks for the marching band.
Speaking of band, are there any competitions coming up, or is
ISPA canceled all that.
they canceled all of it, or will they be
They're
playing?
still hoping to be able to do solo and ensemble in the spring, although they're concerned about that as well. They were quick to cancel. It was back in early July that they said, we don't think we can pull this off, just because the
Will they be playing any of our events, like
They're gonna
foot-
be at the next 3 home football games, and they're gonna do a couple,
good.
off weeks for the parents at
That's-
the stadium.
well, that's good to know. Okay, thank you.
You know, and that makes me think of something else. I was at the volleyball game the other night at the high school. And boy, oh boy, everybody had their mask on, and Mr. Sandor was just buzzing around, just
He
making
sure
sure
was,
everybody
yeah.
was set up the right way. We could not sit behind the team. We had to be up high in the higher elevations, so it felt very safe. They're doing well.
Absolutely.
We're trying. It's a challenge.
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right, any other comments? With that, we'll move on to Dr. Veraco, board calendar, future
So
events,
we are back
activities,
here
excuse me.
2 weeks from yesterday. We go back to Monday the 21st. As I mentioned in an email earlier today, we will be in this room unless we anticipate a large crowd, which we have to go to the auditorium to spread out properly. So if we have any big recognitions or anything as we get deeper into the school year, we may move back down there. But we will stay out of the K-Trap room as long as we need to do the spacing, the distance. So that's 2 weeks from now. If anything comes up in the meantime, you know where to find us.
All right, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Motion for adjournment.
All right, Mr.
Second.
Marshall and Mr. Baxo second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Meeting.